The day began like any other episode of The View. The panel assembled, the audience buzzing, the cameras rolling, but there was a tension in the air the moment Bill Maher took his seat at the table. Unlike many guests who come to nod politely and plug a project, Maher carried himself differently. He wasn't there to flatter. He wasn't there to bend to the rhythm Joy Behar and her co-hosts have perfected over decades. He was there with the bluntness that has defined his entire career, and within minutes it was clear Joy Behar had finally met someone unwilling to play her game. It happened fast. The panel launched into a discussion on television's role in shaping public opinion. Maher began to make a point, measured and deliberate, but before he could complete his sentence, Joy Behar leaned in, waving her hands dismissively. Bill, she cut in, her tone mocking. You can't be serious. Nobody buys that anymore. It was the kind of interruption viewers had grown used to. Joy often steamrolls her co-hosts, cutting them off mid-sentence, redirecting the conversation back to her own opinion. Most guests, caught off guard, smile awkwardly and let her carry on. But Maher wasn't most guests. He paused, stared at her for a beat too long. The audience picked up on it instantly. This wasn't the usual deferential smile of a guest letting Joy bulldoze the conversation. Maher leaned forward slightly, his expression flat, his tone icy. Joy, you've made a career out of doing that, he said, interrupting before anyone finishes. You don't debate, you drown out, the studio gasped. The silence was deafening for a split second before ripples of applause broke through. Joy blinked, taken aback, her smile faltering. For once, her interruption hadn't silenced the guest. It had backfired. She tried to laugh it off, but the damage was done. Maher had called her out directly on the very behavior critics have accused her of for years. And he hadn't raised his voice. He hadn't matched her theatrics. He had simply laid it bare, in front of millions on her own stage. Joy tried to recover quickly, pasting on a laugh and brushing Maher's words aside. Oh, come on, Bill. You've been in this business long enough to know how it works. You throw a punch, you get one back. That's what we do here. Maher tilted his head, unimpressed. His reply was sharper than the interruption itself. No, Joy, what you do here isn't debate. It's not back and forth. It's one person shouting over the other until the audience claps. And you know it. You sit here day after day claiming to hate intolerance, but the minute someone has a point you don't like, you cut them off. That's not conversation. That's performance. The room erupted with applause. The live audience, usually Joy's shield, her reinforcement, wasn't laughing with her. They were clapping for Maher. Joy bristled. She leaned forward, raising her voice, trying to regain control. So you're saying you're the only one allowed to talk? Please, that's rich coming from you. Maher didn't flinch. He kept his tone calm, deliberate, almost surgical. I'm saying if you want to call this a talk show, you have to let people talk. Otherwise, it's just noise. And frankly, Joy, you've been the loudest one creating it. The line landed like a hammer. Gasps, then more applause. Some audience members even shouted, "Let him speak!" The camera cut briefly to Behar's co-hosts, who sat stiffly, eyes down. Unsure whether to intervene or let the clash burn, for years, Joy Behar has deflected accusations of bullying her way through conversations by joking, laughing, and dismissing critics as overly sensitive. But Maher wasn't laughing. He was stripping away the veneer of entertainment, exposing what many have long suspected, that Behar doesn't engage, she dominates. And not out of strength, but out of fear of losing control. The audience reaction sealed the moment. Normally, the View crowd is Joy's army. They cheer her punchlines, clap her interruptions, and boo anyone who dares push back. But this time, the energy shifted. Every time Joy tried to interrupt, murmurs of disapproval rippled through the audience. Every time Maher delivered a pointed critique, the applause grew louder. The very people she counted on to shield her were now siding against her. At one point, when Joy cut in for the third time, Maher stopped mid-sentence and gestured toward the crowd. See? They know. They can see it. You don't let anyone finish a thought. And they're tired of it. The crowd erupted, clapping, whistling, even shouting encouragement. It wasn't just approval of Maher. It was rejection of Behar. For the first time in her long tenure, the audience wasn't her weapon. It was her enemy. Joy's forced laughter grew more strained. She shifted in her seat, her body language defensive, her voice higher pitched than usual. Oh, listen to you, Mr. Perfect. You've never cut anyone off in your life? She shot back. Maher shrugged, calm, almost amused. The difference is, when I do it, I let them hit back. You don't. You shut it down and pretend it's wit. But it's not wit, Joy, it's noise. The room exploded again. This wasn't comedy, this was demolition. Joy's empire of interruptions, sustained for decades, was being dismantled live, with the audience cheering it on, and the cameras caught everything. Her faltering smile, her defensive posture, the audience's betrayal. It was the kind of footage that doesn't just fade after the commercial break. It circulates, it trends, it rewrites reputations. Joy Behar has a signature move when confronted, the forced laugh. For decades, it has been her shield, her way of dismissing criticism without ever addressing it. And right after Bill Maher's first direct shots, she reached for it again. She leaned back in her chair, plastered on a wide grin, and laughed louder than the audience. "Oh, Bill," she said, waving her hand dismissively, "you're just doing what you always do, stirring the pot. That's why people either love you or hate you." The problem was, the audience wasn't laughing with her. Her chuckle sounded hollow against the backdrop of genuine clapping for Maher's earlier lines. The imbalance was glaring. Maher didn't laugh. He didn't soften. He leaned forward, elbows on the table, eyes locked on her. "Joy, that's the difference between you and me. When I stir the pot, I've got something in it. You're just banging the spoon against an empty pan," the studio roared. Applause erupted, whistles cut through the noise, and Joy's smile faltered. She forced another laugh, higher pitched now, but her eyes betrayed the sting. Her co-hosts shifted uncomfortably, and for the first time, Behar looked rattled on her own stage. She tried again. "You've got jokes, Bill, but this is The View. We're here to talk, not to let one guy dominate." Maher tilted his head, smirked slightly, and shot back. "Talk? Joy, you don't talk. You filibuster. The second someone disagrees with you, you cut them off. That's not a conversation. That's just Joy Behar being Joy Behar." The audience clapped harder, some standing. Behar's laugh died in her throat. Her trademark tactic had failed. Instead of brushing Maher's critique aside, she had amplified it, giving him the chance to underline the very flaw he was exposing. The back and forth escalated. Joy tried to regain control with volume, her voice rising as she repeated her points, but Maher's calm composure only made her look more frantic. Finally, after another round of interruptions, Maher raised his hand. "You know what, Joy? This is exactly the problem with this show." The room went silent. Even Joy stopped mid-sentence, eyes narrowing. This show doesn't let people talk. It doesn't let people disagree without turning it into a food fight. You cut off your guests, you drown out your co-hosts, and you mistake noise for substance. And honestly, that's why this show should be cancelled. The words hung in the air like a bomb. Gasps erupted, followed by wild applause and whistles from the audience. Some stood clapping while others shouted, "Yes!" Joy Behar's face dropped, her smile gone, replaced with visible shock. "You can't be serious," she shot back, her voice cracking slightly. "This show has been on the air for over 2 decades. Maher leaned back, unbothered. And for 2 decades, it's been the same thing. Shouting, interruptions, and staged outrage. It's not a conversation, it's chaos. And you, Joy, are the loudest one in the middle of it." The audience erupted again. Behar looked around the room searching for support, but the cheers drowned her out. She tried to talk over the noise, waving her hands, but her words were lost in the thunderous reaction. Maher didn't raise his voice. He didn't need to. The impact of his line was seismic. In one stroke, he hadn't just humiliated Joy, he had delegitimized the show itself, branding it unworthy of survival. And the audience, the very lifeline of The View, had cheered him for it. As the exchange escalated, the other hosts sat frozen. Normally, they jumped in to support Joy or steer the conversation back to safer ground. But this time, the energy was too volatile. Sunny Hostin looked down at her notes, avoiding eye contact with either Maher or Behar. Sarah Haynes shifted nervously in her chair, lips pressed tightly together. Even Whoopi Goldberg, usually quick to intervene, stayed unusually quiet, her eyes darting between the two combatants like a referee watching a fight spiral out of control. Their silence spoke volumes. None of them defended Joy. None of them challenged Maher's brutal assessment. It was as if they too recognized the truth in his words. Behar, noticing the lack of backup, grew more agitated. She turned toward her co-hosts, gesturing wildly. "Are you all going to let him sit here and say this?" she demanded, but no one stepped in. The awkward silence only highlighted her isolation. The cameras caught it all, Behar's desperation, the co-host's discomfort, Maher's calm dominance. When Joy tried to push again, Maher cut her off with surgical precision. "You're proving my point, Joy. You don't listen. You don't let people speak. You just want noise. And maybe that's entertaining for some people, but it's not a conversation. And it's not good television." The audience clapped again, this time with a rhythm that sounded like agreement. Joy sat back, arms crossed, her expression hardened. For once, she was the one silenced. Not because she chose to be, but because no one in the room wanted to hear her anymore. Her co-hosts didn't save her. The audience didn't save her. And Maher, with just a few lines, had managed to flip the script. The queen of interruptions had been interrupted, exposed, and humiliated on her own stage. The episode wasn't even over before the internet caught fire. Audience members in the studio had their phones out, capturing clips as the clash unfolded. By the time the credits rolled, Twitter, TikTok, and Instagram were flooded with videos of Bill Maher eviscerating Joy Behar. The moment that went most viral? Maher leaning back, calm and steady, declaring, "This show should be cancelled. It's not a conversation, it's a food fight. And Joy, you're the loudest one throwing plates." Within hours, the clip had millions of views. Users replayed Joy's stunned reaction, looping her faltering smile with captions like, "When the interrupter gets interrupted." The hashtag #CancelTheView trended at the top spot for hours. Side-by-side edits popped up everywhere. Maher speaking with cold precision on one side, Joy fidgeting and laughing nervously on the other. TikTok creators layered in sound effects, boos, clashing plates, even a referee's whistle, to emphasize how one-sided the takedown was. Even the View's official account couldn't escape the avalanche. Comments flooded their uploads. Maher was right. Joy ruins the show. Finally, someone told her the truth. Attempts to spin the clash as just spirited debate fell flat. Because the footage was clear. This wasn't spirited debate. It was humiliation, and perhaps most devastating for Joy, many of the comments weren't just about the moment. They were about years of frustration. Viewers wrote, "She's been doing this forever. About time someone shut her down." Others said, "The show is unwatchable because of her constant interruptions." Social media didn't just amplify the clash, it weaponized it. Joy Behar's tactics, once excused as part of her personality, were now laid bare as the reason audiences wanted the show gone. By the next morning, the headlines were merciless. Bill Maher brings The View to a standstill. Joy Behar silenced in her own house. Maher's brutal assessment goes viral. Cancel The View? Television critics dissected the exchange with glee. Articles described the clash as the unraveling of Behar's dominance and a rare moment of honesty. On a show built on noise, even mainstream outlets that usually supported The View couldn't ignore what had happened. Variety noted how the audience's reaction flipped against Behar in real time. The Hollywood Reporter wrote, "Maher's line about canceling the show resonated because it exposed what many viewers already felt. The View has stopped being a discussion and devolved into chaos." Columnists highlighted the hypocrisy. Behar has long criticized others for intolerance, but she herself refuses to tolerate views that oppose hers, one piece read. Sam Maher didn't just challenge her, he exposed her pattern. The criticism wasn't contained to Joy, it spread to the entire show. Maher's blunt remark that this show should be cancelled struck a chord. Suddenly, analysts were openly questioning whether the program, after more than 2 decades, had finally worn out its welcome. Ratings charts were pulled, showing declines. Viewers' complaints were quoted, and all of it tied back to that one exchange, Bill Maher holding up a mirror and daring the world to look. For Joy, it wasn't just an embarrassing argument. It was the start of a larger conversation about whether her presence had poisoned the show beyond repair. If Joy Behar's reputation sank, Bill Maher's soared. He has always thrived on controversy, but this time he was applauded not just for being provocative, but for being precise. Clips of the clash dominated late-night recaps and morning shows. Maher's bluntness was praised as refreshing in a media landscape saturated with soft interviews and fake laughs. Headlines framed him as the only person willing to say what others wouldn't, that The View is dysfunctional. And Joy Behar is at the center of the dysfunction. Podcasts and commentary shows replayed the footage, praising Maher's composure. "He didn't yell, he didn't lose control," one analyst said. "He just calmly dismantled her, piece by piece." Maher leaned into the attention. When asked later about the incident, he shrugged. "I just told the truth. If people can't handle it, that's on them." The clip of that statement went viral too, reinforcing his image as fearless, unapologetic, and untouchable. His appearance on The View ended up doing more for his own reputation than any press tour could. He walked in as a guest. He walked out as the man who had said what millions were thinking. For Maher, it was a win in every sense. For Joy Behar, the fallout was catastrophic. The footage replayed endlessly. Her interruptions, her fake laugh, her stunned silence as Maher told her off. What she had built over decades, the image of the witty, sharp, unflappable panelist, crumbled in minutes. Viewers saw her not as the strong voice of reason she imagines herself to be, but as the loud interrupter exposed in her own arena. Maher's line about canceling the show stuck, not because it was shocking, but because it rang true. Critics wrote that Joy Behar had finally lost her grip on the audience. Social media labeled her a bully who got bullied back. Even her co-hosts' silence during the clash was interpreted as abandonment. Proof that behind the scenes, her dominance wasn't admired but resented. The humiliation wasn't private. It was national, and it wasn't temporary. Clips continued to circulate, ensuring that for years to come, when people think of Joy Behar, they'll remember the day she was silenced, embarrassed, and told to her face that the show she ruled should be cancelled. Her legacy, once tied to The View's long history, was now forever tied to its greatest humiliation.